You got to give it to Sacha Baron Cohen. At least he took it. Like, he took all the stuff more than anyone else did.
What he did in those like 10 years is up there with the greatest comedic achievements ever.
So, you think about movies like Borat and movies like Jackass, and it's like, oh, that's lowbrow. It's not comedy, but like the amount of laugh out loud moments per minute is up there more so than almost any other of the like sophisticated comedies.
But Borat's sophisticated. Borat hasn't. Every scene has an intention, whether it's to make whether to make a Southern redneck who is completely anti-Jew look like an idiot. Great, do it. Or make a Southern aristocrat, feel uncomfortable for the first time in their lives. Like
it's supposed to expose hypocrisy on like every level.
Him bringing a 250-pound prostitute to a dinner at a like mansion and like everyone's wearing tuxedos and wherever is brilliant. It's just brilliant. And I laughed more. Old School, when it came out, was probably one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I laughed way more watching Borat again than I did Old School.
I gotta rewatch Borat. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Old School's really just Will Ferrell's greatest hits.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's not a lot of laugh out loud humor in the movie other than Will Ferrell. But he's got, I'd say 4 or 5 of the best comedy scenes ever. The dart scene, the running naked scene, like these are iconic things that, seeing them again, it just brings you back to why Will Ferrell's Will Ferrell.
Well, Anchorman, I think, was your favorite movie for a stretch of time.
Favorite comedy for a while. Yeah. I mean, again, when you're talking about things that are brilliant, I view Anchorman as complete comedic brilliance. In every sense, the fact that he just said, "I'm going to be a 1975, TV anchorman with a thick mustache who has no self-awareness," and he created this entire world. It's just so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, even now, it's a great idea. I gotta rewatch some of those. I mean, not with my daughter; she's 2, but in time. Welcome back to Monday Night Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. I am one of your hosts. My name is Scott Macklin, and on the other side of this Google screen, making sure his microphone is on, is my other host, Matt Thompson. What's up, Matt?
It would have been real bad if I just talked for 17 minutes and had it off again, because it's already happened before.
Yeah. Well, we always have the Google Meet audio. We just had a really good Jim Carey conversation that I'm gonna put at the end of this podcast because it's too good to not. But it's about 7 minutes. It's great.
Tease it.
I just literally what I did.
Yeah, but tease what the conversation's about. It's about that Jim Carrey's movies from the early 90s may not be holding up, or do they?
Do Jim Carrey's movies from the early 90s hold up? I don't know. Find out at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
That's
how you do it. You gotta give him the hook. If you don't give him the hook, it's fishing without a worm, brah. Fishing without a worm.
When you're right, you're right, Matt. I can't deny that. I do want to say, go to our YouTube page and subscribe. Like our podcast, subscribe to that. Rate us 5 stars. Give us all the likes. And you know what? More importantly, just tell one friend that you like our podcast, because with creative works like this, that is the best way to advertise. And Matt, that was an exact ripoff of History of Rock and Roll in 500 Songs. I know you'd appreciate that.
We need to do an episode just devoted to that podcast.
I think we will. We'll plan that soon. But there's too much going on right now. The NFL is in full swing. We're coming out of week 7 right now. We saw all the Sunday games today except the night game.
How awful were the games today?
They were bad. But the NBA season is coming up. We're going to do a big wins draft coming up on this episode. What that means is Matt and I are going to flip a coin to see who goes first, and we are going to draft the Eastern Conference teams in the order we think they're going to get the most wins. So, whoever wins the coin flip is going to win, because there's one team who's going to significantly outpace the rest.
But it's about whoever doesn't get the Wizards and whoever gets the Celtics.
right, pretty much. Well, there's only 15 teams, so whoever gets the Wizards is going to get the Celtics. I mean, whoever gets the Celtics is going to get the Wizards.
That's true. Oh, well, maybe we should only draft 14 teams because that's not really fair to have opposite number of teams when we're doing a draft based on total amounts of wins.
That's a great point, and that's why you're the friggin' host with the most, Matt, because you come up with shit like that.
Now, both one of us are going to have a huge Nets versus Wizards dilemma.
Right. But I want to go over a couple of things from the weekend first, Matt. Number one being, did you see my boys down in Tennessee take care of the Crimson Tide, Matt? That was quite the showing.
I did. Alabama's the strangest college football team I think I've seen in years, where they go ahead and beat Georgia. And I don't know if any of our listeners watched the Georgia game on Saturday night, but they have an NFL defense. And when I'm saying they have an NFL defense, I mean every single player on that defense is going to be playing in the NFL.
But when Alabama played them, Milroe made him look horrible. Just made him look like he was the best athlete on the field by far.
And Milroe's done the same thing in a few games this year, but he's just so inconsistent. Now, he's a guy that's going to measure 6'3", 240 pounds to run a 4.3 40. So he's if I had a bet right now, he's my bet for first pick in the draft because of his measurables.
Yeah.
But if he keeps faltering like this, but back to Tennessee, the SEC is just in a world of their own in terms of good teams.
It's like the NFL light. It's AAA essentially is what it is.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, while the Tennessee thing is happening, Miami keeps trucking along.
Yeah.
Scoring, they put up 56. Cam Ward had another 350-yard 4-touchdown game, and he's looking like he's jumping into the first-round talk now. But ultimately, your team's looking really solid. Their Florida matchup that's coming up in a few weeks, or did that?
No, they already played Florida.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Hopefully that they can maintain the the energy, but Nico's still not playing great.
No, he didn't. I was about to say his line was not particularly good. I mean, he threw for 200 yards and I think not even maybe one touchdown, but I don't know. They pulled out. Alabama is so weird, man. They have such good players, and they lose to South Carolina. They lose to Vanderbilt. Barely beat South Carolina, and then Tennessee just ran over them.
I think that's where the Nick Saban factor is being missed with these closer games, where Saban's gonna will his team and put them in the right positions to change the score, at least a score. I mean, you got to admit, you're talking the best college coach in the history of football just leaving, and you're getting a guy in from Washington who's really just doesn't have any experience in these monster games. He just doesn't. It's a Northwest guy, small colleges, small areas. I don't know where they go from here, but if Alabama loses another game, you could pretty much kiss the college football playoff goodbye. And people in Alabama are already talking about Kalen DeBoer losing his job, which is par for the course with Alabama and following Nick Saban, but that's the case.
Well, he was a coach at Washington, which is a pretty big program, but it's just nothing in comparison to any SEC program. The pageantry around it, the care that goes into it in the South. I mean, people love their college football teams. It's like church in college football. That's what they do.
It's like watching a Ravens Steelers game from the mid 2000s, and then going to watch, somebody run the spread. And someone dink and dunk. I mean, that's how philosophically different the Southeastern Conference is to the rest of the country in terms of talent, intensity, and just overall quality in the programs. You're talking about coaching, you're talking about leadership. It's just an entirely different world when each team that's in the SEC essentially represents their entire region and area in a way that teams in the North and teams in the big city just don't.
No, I 100% agree with you. I will say, though, that the reason I brought this up mostly is to throw it in your face that I'm not a mush. How can I be a mush when Tennessee beat Alabama? Tell me that, you motherfucker.
I'm assuming by you saying this, that is the kiss of death to Tennessee. So thank you for opening your scoop. No, you are mush beyond belief. And if you don't think you are, that's when the mush comes back to haunt you.
You know what? I want to apologize for using the F-bomb at you. That was unnecessary, and I might just bleep it out, but I'll keep the apology in regardless.
Yeah, fuck you for doing that.
God damn it! Another thing I wanted to bring up before we get to the NBA wins draft is I understand that in a vacuum in the NFC West, San Francisco's probably the best team there, but I think we can take them out of consideration of being a serious Super Bowl team. I think there's at least two teams in the NFC North that are bigger contenders. I think that, they probably will still win their division because it's a really down year for the NFC West. But they just, not only did they lose to Kansas City, they just didn't really look like they were on the same level with them. Like the Ravens lost to them game one, which, week one is a whole, you could argue that you can really throw it out because nobody practices in the preseason anymore. Nobody plays in the preseason. But the Ravens looked like they belonged on the field with them. Kansas City was just outclassed the Niners today. And that, even though they've lost to them in big-time games, they've never looked as below them in terms of execution and talent than they did today.
Kyle Shanahan's history now with big games is very disturbing.
It's brutal, dude. It's legitimately brutal.
I mean, and this goes back all the way to his coordinator days with Atlanta when
28-3 in the Super Bowl. That's
right.
him.
And it's just kind of built from there. But I think there's just too much talent on that team when healthy for them not to be a Super Bowl contender. I really think the offense is really predicated on Christian McCaffrey, and him not being there is really showing itself. Sure, you can have those couple Jordan Mason games that you had at the beginning of the year to kind of fill the gap, but when you don't have somebody that's generating as much attention as McCaffrey, and then it's all going elsewhere, it's showing. And Purdy's doing the best he can. He's doing his best Superman impression because everything's kind of a mess there. But I think if they can get a little bit healthier and everything can calm down a bit, I don't see a huge difference in them and a lot of other teams. Now, the NFC North that you touched on, I agree with. Those three teams are very legit, but part of my thought process is they still got to play each other the rest of the year. They're going to beat the hell out of each other.
Right, but iron sharpens iron, Matt. So I think those teams are going to get, even if Detroit doesn't come out with wins across the board, or Green Bay, I think Minnesota is probably going to fall back a bit in the coming weeks. We'll see. But even if Green Bay and Detroit don't come out of there in tip-top shape in terms of record-wise, they're going to be playing really good teams pretty consistently, and I think they're going to be better for it.
It's going to be hard for me to pick against Detroit's offense right now with the way it's clicking.
Yeah,
that offense is just so talented across the board. Those two running backs are both phenomenal. The offensive line's the best in the NFL, hands down. The receiving core is top-notch. Now, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be a big loss, but I don't think it kills them. I really don't.
They ended up being an underdog, too. I think the line they were plus 1.5. I don't know why that happened. I guess it was at Minnesota, so give them credit for that. But that loss to Aiden Hutchinson didn't stop their offense in any way. I mean, it's not going to give that Campbell's going to get them up for that game, especially because they lost Hutch.
It's just a really good setup in Detroit. And let's be real, they're going to be good for a long time.
Yeah, they're going to be really good.
This is a team that's built for continued success. Goff just decided, you know what? I'm tired of incompletions. I'm just going to stop them. I think, what was he, 18 for 18 2 weeks ago, and then 22 of 25 today?
The dude,
he was
a laughingstock. He was a laughingstock at 2 points in his career, Matt. After his first year, when his coach was Jeff Fisher, and then after the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots when they only scored 3 points. At 2 different points in his career, Goff was a laughingstock, and now he took the Lions to the NFC Championship game last year, and it looks like they're on their way back there at least this year.
You're not going to hear anything bad about Goff moving forward.
Not anymore.
He's clearly an above-average quarterback. He was when he went to the Super Bowl, because you just don't go to the Super Bowl in 2022 or 2021, whatever year he went, if you're not good. This isn't the 80s where teams just willed their way to the Super Bowl without a quarterback. This isn't the 85 Bears. He led them there 100%. So you're a guy that's gone to one Super Bowl, a championship game, and has his team now just poised for success.
Yeah, You're not going to hear anything out of my mouth about Goff. I mean, he's not going to have a perfect games. He's going to have bad games, but he's more than just a system quarterback. He understands how to win games. He understands what throws he has to make and when. And I think it's like let me take a step back. He's not as talented as Matthew Stafford.
No one is.
Right. Stafford is like the best arm almost in the history of the NFL.
He's A++ arm. A++. Yeah.
So, but Goff is a very above average NFL quarterback, and it looks as if he's going to be at the head of Detroit for the next 3 to 4 years, and they're going to be right in the mix every single year.
3 to 4 years. He could be there another 12 years. He's not even old.
Yeah, I mean, it's who knows how long they're going to keep. I'm giving the team 3 to 4 years to like stay. At
sure. Well, yeah. You don't know the next cycle of talent that they're going to have, but
right.
The NFL, you basically have 4 to 5 year windows total. From when you essentially draft these people to have to sign them, and you just can't keep everybody. And the Lions are going to learn that when they have to pay everybody in a year or two.
That was my point. But I love the NFL. I love football, but Matt, it's time to get ready for the NBA. We are about to embark on an NBA wins draft. And while we do that, we're going to talk about each team. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference right now. And Matt, do you have a coin ready so you can flip it and see who is going to make the first pick? Get it on mic, though.
Yeah, I don't know where it is, though.
No. Get your talking on mic. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt had a coin, but now he can't find it. So he is not on mic. He got up, and he's walking to find the coin. Where did Matt put the coin, and when is he going to be back with said coin? Matt, did you find the coin?
I got a quarter.
Hell yeah.
All right.
You got to get on mic, bud. Matt, you got to get on mic.
All right, I got a quarter.
Okay,
all right, so what I have is a 1990 George Washington style quarter.
Great year. Great year for quarters.
Great year. They made a lot of them that year. Winged eagle on the back, in case you were wondering. Winged eagle on the back. Scott, I'll let you call it because you haven't. You're just not as good as me. So I figure like you needed to go first. So call it in the air.
Tails.
It's tails.
Tails never fails, baby.
All right. I get second too.
Did we just decide that?
Yep.
That's fine. I'll take the Celtics. Let's talk about the Celtics. The Celtics over-under for wins is 58.5. Who knows when Porzingis is going to be back? Like they said a couple of months.
I would advise everyone to put their money on the over.
Yeah, they are so good. They are the modern NBA team. And if it's not enough that they just won a championship and they have the best starting five by far in the league, they have this chip on their shoulder because Jaylen Brown got snubbed from the Olympics.
Wow.
And Jason Tatum played about 6 minutes the entire time. I know it's a wah. It's certainly a wah, but it's a fact that they have a chip on their shoulder now.
But let's talk about what could go wrong for the Celtics this year. There's a lot of Celtics hype, and rightfully so. You brought up the Jaylen Brown factor. You brought up the Jason Tatum factor, them having a chip on their shoulder. But when you think about it, there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong there. Kristaps, very injured. Who knows how he's going to come back? Al Horford, another year older. Who knows how he's going to come back? Put that on top of an aging Drew Holiday. Guards do not age well. They do not age the same as wings because they just don't have the size to compensate for their loss of athleticism. That being said, they're probably the best team in basketball, and they deserve to be number one, but they're hanging on by a thread, and I don't think people are giving that enough attention.
Those are all very valid points. Another one is that, Kristaps withstanding, right? Because he's an great injury risk every single year, and he was certainly injured last year. Did come to play well for them in the finals for a game and a half ish. If they suffer another significant injury, now we're talking something serious that they probably won't be able to sustain being the best team. Now, you can say what injury-wise, what if with every single team, but it's just something to be said that they are a very, very good starting five, but their bench, Luke Cornett, some of these other guys.
It ain't great.
It's not someone you would want necessarily in your starting lineup for a championship caliber team.
And another thing you have to keep in mind also is, are they going to go into, coast mode this year a little bit during the regular season? They haven't in previous years because they hadn't won yet, so they're still kind of had that fight in them. Will that fight still be there after they're already champions? I think that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. You mentioned the format of this draft we had to change because of the Celtics. You will get the second two picks, second pick and third pick, and then I will get the fourth, and then we'll just go back and forth after that, one by one.
Okay, so I'm taking two teams, both on different trajectories. One as low as they could possibly go considering who their best player is, and the other just made a big trade, and there's a lot of hype in New York for the New York Knicks being the first team, and the Milwaukee Bucks being the second team.
Look at you!
I think Giannis is the best player in the Eastern Conference. I think that him alone can will that team to 50-plus wins. I'm going to give Damian Lillard a bit of a mulligan last year. I'm not sold this team as a title contender by any chance, but I do think that it will be a better regular season team than you saw last year. Keep in mind, this team was on a 55-win pace until Giannis got hurt. And that was with Lillard struggling. On the Knicks side, there's just too many good players for them not to win a lot of regular season games. They set up really well for the regular season. They have multiple scorers, multiple guys that can go off any single night. I think they're probably, in my mind, they're going to be the number 2 seed, and I would pick the Bucks to be the 3 seed in this scenario.
Very, very interesting. I did not think you were going to pick the Bucks. I thought they were going to be there for me with my next choice. Completely agree that Giannis, I don't think there's a doubt he's the best player in the Eastern Conference. I guess someone can argue Embiid. Even Tatum, you can make the argument. Giannis is clearly the best player in the Eastern Conference to me. And
me too. Me too.
And the Knicks, not only are they going to be, they have really good players at every single starting position, but they're going to be playing to gain the chemistry that's going to propel them into the playoffs. So I really like that pick. I don't think they're going to be taking a ton of games off.
No.
And then the Bucks.
You also have to remember where their home games are being played. When you're a good team and you have Madison Square Garden and that energy as your home arena, I think it's going to be a really special year in New York for a fan base that's really been miserable for about 30.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Going back to the Bucks, I do think that it is going to be quote unquote a bounce back year, even though they were pretty solid last year. Lillard certainly didn't have a great year by his standards. I do think he's too great a player historically to allow that to happen again.
But he did say that was because he knew he was going to be traded the previous offseason and did not work out.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. I just think he wasn't there because of the divorce, being away from his kids, etc. The working out stuff, like he knows how to get in shape. I don't think that just seems stupid.
But there's a repetition factor where if you're not doing the grind the way you're used to doing the grind, it's going to affect you on the court. When he's putting in the hours, he could probably sit there on the court with his eyes closed and hit a percentage of his shots. That's what repetition does for these NBA players. And when you cut that out and you have personal drama in your life, and if you compare it to the rest of his career, he's never been bad before. So I'll give him a mulligan for 1 year, but this is a huge year for Dame.
There's 100% agree with you there. I just think he's also heard a lot of the Dame is washed talking points that are going on, and he's not gonna. He's too prideful of a person to be like, "Oh, I'm washed. Come see what I do this year." That's the way I think he's approaching this season, and we're gonna see a big season out of him and Giannis. And for all of the late game decision making that people make fun of Doc Rivers for, he knows how his bread is buttered, and he did in when he was with the Clippers. He did when he was in the 76ers. And that Giannis Dame pick and roll, I think, is going to be utilized a lot this year.
Oh yeah, all day long.
Now Middleton is going to be an issue because if they don't have him, they're not a real serious. They don't have that third piece. They're not a serious title contender. I don't necessarily think that's going to inhibit them from being a good regular season team. So I like that pick from you.
Thank you. Who do you got?
Okay, moving forward, this is going to be a bit of a shocker. I am going to take the Cavs, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they are going to be playing to be the second seed. I think that Donovan Mitchell is signed to his long-term contract. I think he is staying put. He's going to have something to prove in terms of him being one of the upper echelon stars. Whether he is or isn't, that's a different point. I think he's trying to prove that. Darius Garland was injured a lot of last season, did not have a great season by his standards. I think Evan Mobley is going to come back and be very good. Jared Allen is strong.
Can they play together?
Yeah. Who particularly? Allen and Mobley?
Yes.
I think they can, but I also think they're going to spend a lot of time staggering those guys and having one big at all times, and I think that's pretty much the way to do it. I'm sort of on Mobley Island and hoping he can take a step up. I don't know how serious that step is going to be and if he can actually do it, but he has so much talent. Like on the ball, shooting threes. If he can just elevate slightly, I think he's going to be in that crazy tier of talented players.
I think Mobley is that talented. I just think he's on the wrong team to reach that talent. Mm-hmm. You've got two past second point guards essentially that, and not much on the wings. You have Jared Allen there. He's really in no man's land. When you watch them play when Allen's on the court, it makes no sense. Allen controls the entire middle. Mobley's floating from wing to wing. Yes, he can guard everyone. Yes, he's a stud defensively, but I think the Cavs will not reach their potential unless they can figure out a Jared Allen trade, preferably one for a really good wing.
That's the big thing that's hanging over them. Is there a trade away? And I think they understand that. I think everyone understands that. And I'm not surprised they didn't do the Brandon Ingram trade for Jared Allen this summer because Brandon Ingram is not the player that they need. Not another ball-dominant wing who can't really shoot threes. But like...
OG Anunoby would have worked there.
Like an Anunoby, that's a great call.
Yeah.
Like a Harrison Barnes in his prime type of player.
Sure.
Who doesn't need the ball a lot and can drain corner threes. That's the type of guy that they need.
They need a switchable guy next. If they wanted a perfect team, they'd get a switchable guy who can be a small ball four, but has enough girth to hold up, that can play next to Mobley, and then you would have this super athletic, super wide front court. And I do like your pick though. They were in the running for my next pick, but you didn't take who I wanted to take, so I'm happy.
I assume I know who you're going to take, and if you don't, I'm going to be surprised. So let's go. Who do you want to take?
The Indiana Pacers.
Surprise, surprise, my guy. Okay.
Indiana sets up for this scenario very well. Why, you ask? Mm-hmm. It's very simple. They have quality across the board. Someone sits, they have the deepest bench maybe in the entire NBA. You've got defensive players. You've got Halliburton, who's a star who can light up any night. Young players in Mathurin, dominant bigs in Miles Turner, who's developed into quietly one of the better centers in the NBA. Yep. And don't forget that Pascal Siakam trade was midseason last year. Pascal Siakam is an awesome championship level player. He was the number 2 player on a world championship team. Do not forget that. The number 2 player, hands down, on a championship team. And he is there now. He's got had a full offseason, acclimated himself with Halliburton. I just think that's a 50-win team all day. And I know who you're going to pick, and I'll hammer that in a second.
You're 100% right on the Pacers. Now, their win total largely is going to depend if Halliburton can play like he did in the first half of the season before he got injured. Because if he comes back and he's not that all-NBA type of guard, they're not going to reach the 50-win total. They're probably not going to reach the 45-win total. If he is that guard, I mean, they're a really good regular season team. I still don't think that they're really serious contenders for the championship, regardless of how many wins they have in the regular season. But they're going to be flying up and down the court, scoring a ton of points. And Siakam is a quality wing. He'd probably be good for the Cavs, actually.
Yeah,
Siakam would have been a good move. Really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be able to be a secondary ball handler, hit corner threes. But
Siakam's a historically underrated player. He does everything well. There's nothing that guy can't do on a basketball court. And because he was playing north of the border on arguably the most boring championship team in history, he doesn't get as much love as other people that would be really, really heralded in his situation.
2-time All-NBA player, Pascal Siakam. Let's not forget about that.
Exactly.
He's been recognized. Okay, so, I can't let this team fall any further. It's the 76ers. I thought you were going to take them in your swing. Their over-under wins are 52.5. Now, there's a lot of risk picking the 76ers because Joel Embiid already said he's not playing back-to-backs.
That's tough.
Paul George already said that, or already has a hyperextended knee. It's only a bone bruise, no structural damage. But listen, he gets injured a lot. This pick for me is focused on Tyrese Maxey because he is a superstar above and beyond what anyone expected from him. It's probably the best pick in the 20s in the last 10 years in the draft.
Yeah.
And I can't that's really what this is hinging on, because he's going to have to score 28 plus points this year for them to be a really good team, because, like I said, JoJo is not going to be playing back-to-backs, and Paul George historically is not going to be there every night.
No, he's not. And that's why I don't pick them. I can't pick a team where you don't know what their starting lineup is going to be on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
It's Maxey, while his stats have been fantastic, everything about him has been really good. Is he a winning player? I don't know that to be true yet. I don't.
I do. I'd love him on any team I ever have. I love Maxey.
I mean, he's kind of undersized. His defense is questionable. He can put the ball in the basket very efficiently, so that obviously gives him a role to be, and the capability of being great. I'm just. But
he also
sure.
had to play. He also had to play off of Harden and distribute. He can do whatever you need him to do, and that was proven when Harden was there. And then last year when he stepped up and hit the 25, 26 point a game mark.
But who else besides him does the 76ers have to really handle the ball?
Well, no, they don't need anyone now. I mean, Paul George will be that secondary ball handler, right? But, Maxey is their point guard. You know better than I do, Matt, that in today's NBA, you don't have traditional point guards. You have tweeners, the term I'm looking for used to be combo
Tweener.
guard. The combo guards is what I was looking for.
But
they used to hate that 10, 15 years ago. Now you have to be one as a dominant ball handler in the NBA.
I just don't know if any of these quote unquote combo guards necessarily can win championships, and make it sustainable. I mean, I haven't seen it.
What's Steph?
Steph is the best shooter in the history of the world. He's a shooting guard all day long. He's not a point guard in any capacity,
except for the fact that he ran the point for the Warriors there.
They
were winning.
Okay, well, he's also got probably the best handle I've ever seen. And
but you just brought up a point, and now you're discounting when I got the correct point. You said,
Maxey has none of that.
I've never seen a combo guard win a championship. I just pointed you to Steph, who is a combo guard.
You can't label.
And now you're like, oh, that doesn't count.
No,
He's too
because
good.
you can't label Steph. He's above that. He's one of one. There's no comparison to Steph in any scenario that you're going to give. So to compare him to Maxey in any way is not fair to Maxey, because no matter what he does, he'll never be Steph. My point is, does Maxey have the vision and the consistency to be an NBA point guard night in, night out with no help, and have that team be a championship contender? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Yeah, I haven't seen his passing skills like that.
Maxey, see, this is where I disagree, because he had to play that way when Harden had the ball. He had to go off ball. He ran the secondary, the second teams. Maxey is also one of the fastest players end to end in the NBA. You can't stop him once he gets momentum.
That got John Wall far.
Well, John Wall couldn't shoot. Maxey can shoot.
I agree. I mean, yes, I'm just. There's a lot of Maxey hype. My point is, he's not perfect, and there's a lot of holes in that team that are glaring to me. And if you don't see them, that's on you, and you can deal with
I didn't. I just laid out the point of why I shouldn't pick them, but their over under is such where I have to pick them, because the potential is like 55 wins potentially.
It's true. It's true.
So all right, there's only really one team left to choose.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Miami. Who did you want?
Go ahead.
If you weren't feeling Miami, I'm trying to look to see who you're even thinking of. Oh yeah, I don't really like Orlando. Yes, Miami's who I want. Just give me Jimmy Butler and Bam over Franz Wagner. Just please, just give them to me for more wins. I just think Miami's healthier than they've been in a few years. They're shooting. Duncan Robinson last year really came back to be a real functional NBA asset again. Mix that with a fully healthy Tyler Hero. Jimmy Butler with a very rested Jimmy Butler. Remember, he didn't go to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So, and Bam,
it's a contract year for Jimmy too. They did not extend him.
That's a good point. And I just think Spoelstra's the best coach in the NBA, not named Popovich, and that's who I would want to ride or die with.
Great choice by me. because I can choose the Orlando Magic. The Heat are a fine team, but the Heat and the Magic were one of the two teams. I thought you were going to take the Magic because their upside is much better. Pablo Banchero has the best upside of anyone on either team. And I like Franz. He had pretty bad shooting numbers last year. But listen, they have
no.
Jalen Suggs is is one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, and he shot over 40% from three.
They were not pretty bad shooting numbers. He was the worst shooter in the entire league last year.
The worst volume shooter.
The worst volume shooter in the entire league last year. Meaning there's no one worse.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, you're looking at him being your number 2 option. It's scary. I'm not saying that they can't. I do love their upside. I think there's a couple issues with the team, though. The lack of an actual guard who you can go to in tough situations is a problem.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And I think they
have. Wait, whoa! You're not a Cole Anthony guy? You're not a Cole Anthony fella?
No, not really. I mean, he's fine. Look, he's a nice bench piece. He's just limited. And Suggs is limited offensively, but he's amazing defensively. I think they just might have also too many players. I don't know who plays where and when because everyone's 6'10" and no one can really guard guards. So you're kind of forced into having a lot of guys not playing that need NBA minutes.
They are just defensively probably the best defensive team in the league. Stifling 1 through 5, they're just bigger than everybody, and on ball at the rim, they're just going to stop a lot of people. I also really want to see how Anthony Black turns out this year. He did not have a stellar rookie year, but I really liked that pick when they got him. Even though it's another
where does he play?
A big guard who can't shoot, so
There's a lot of overlap.
On the team now, he's going to be spacing a little bit better.
What a waste of money and time that was.
I agree. It's not.
Is there ever been a more overrated player in the history of the NBA than him? Just because there's just not a lot of people that can play that position and play functional defense. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, listen, he can shoot threes and he can play functional defense, and that's going to get you contract after contract in the NBA.
I mean, he can shoot open threes.
I was really happy that you had the Magic there because I just think their upside is better than Miami's. I think Miami.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, Miami is going to be in the 6 to 9 seed range. I think Orlando could sneak up there. They were a top 3 team until about 3/4 through the season last year in the East. So I was happy that they're there. Now there is a significant drop off in teams.
No,
We've gone through all the potential good teams.
I disagree.
Ooh, okay.
My next pick has a playoff opportunity. And the Atlanta Hawks can make the playoffs. I'm not saying they will, but compare them to who's about to be talked about after this, and they look like the '96 Bulls because we are. And I was noticing this while looking over some stuff for this segment. This is the amount of horrible teams is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really, really bad.
There's 6 teams in the East that all could lose 70 games.
70 games is a lot of games to lose, man.
They're capable of losing 70 games is what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm not saying they will. They're all that bad that they could. But let's go back to Atlanta. You still have Trae Young. Why are we still believing in Trae Young? No, I don't believe in Trae Young. But I believe that Trae Young can put up enough volume and has enough of a chip on his shoulder to will that team to enough victories to definitely screw over whoever the hell you're picking next. Do I think they're a great team? No. Would I like to see Okongwu do more? I would. I'd like to see them move on from Clint Capella. And I'd like to see Dyson Daniels play alongside Trae Young because I think that could be a very, very interesting combination if Daniels' scoring develops because of his size and defensive ability. I think because let's be honest, Trae's never played with a guard that knows what they're doing on defense. Mm-hmm. And if this guy's as good as advertised, because I've never, obviously he hasn't done it in the games.
Dyson Daniels was buried in New Orleans.
He was buried, but you're talking about a lottery pick who is foreign, who hasn't played a lot of organized basketball in the last few years, but he's 6'6", 6'7", super athletic, super mobile, and can handle. So it makes for on paper a really good duo with Trae. But and that I hate the Hawks, but they're better than whoever the hell you're going to pick next.
The Hawks were the clear pick there. When you have Trae Young, a guy who can end up scoring 30 points a game, you're going to be in a lot of games, right? And
Sure.
you know he's not afraid of the moment if it comes down to a close game. That's the pick there.
They have guys.
Yeah, I also want to see how Zach Risache plays. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire, but he's looked pretty confident and good in the preseason. Not that the preseason is anything, but, listen, you can only take what you can see.
I think I know what Risache is. I think he's Bogdanovich. Like, he's just a fine 3-point guy who will be fine for a bunch of years, but he had no business being the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, it was just a weird draft this year. I mean,
I don't understand how that happens.
Sarr couldn't have been the first pick either, and we'll talk about the Wizards and him later. Okay, so now I'm left with the poop. There's a lot of poop left, and I don't really have. So I'm going on pure upside right now, and I'm gonna pick the Hornets.
Okay.
I just think that Brandon Miller is probably the best potential player left on any team. Has the most upside of anyone, and we know LaMelo Ball has played at an all-star level before. So if they can somehow stay healthy, and with Miles Bridges, there's 3 like borderline-ish all-star type of talents there. And if that ends up happening, then they'll have 30, 34 wins in that range.
And there's a reason that Charlotte's never really getting the first pick, because they continually have picks 4 through 8, and they keep getting average players that are sticking in the league and are not terrible, but they're not improving the team in any way. It's just this constant mediocrity that has been with this franchise literally since 1989.
Yeah.
I know they had a gap, but I mean, this goes way back to Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson days when you just couldn't win more than 45 games in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And listen, they have a new coach, Charles Lee. He came from the Celtics system. He's apparently has rave reviews from writers and coaches around the league, and the players are really responding to him. I'm excited to see. Listen, all we can do is go on the information that we hear and see, right? So I'm excited to see them. They're going to be a fun team to watch, regardless. So I'll have a vested interest in my NBA League Pass. Anyway,
sure.
All right, now it gets funky, Matt. Now we can get down to some nitty gritty.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to go north of the border and go with the Raptors for the next pick.
You have to.
Just because it's a franchise that at least has some pride and at least has some proper management. They made a bunch of trades. They added RJ Barrett. They still have Scotty Barnes, who's a developing all-star level player. Now, Scotty Barnes kind of puts them in a situation where they're kind of stuck with this soon-to-be max contract player who's never going to be a top 20 player in the NBA. What does that mean for you? It means that you're probably never going to be good enough to get the first pick and get a generational superstar, and you're never going to be. It's a problem.
Yeah,
but they'll win enough games, I think.
When you put all your eggs in the Emmanuel Quigley basket, it's just he's not someone who you want to pay max type of money to, in my opinion. What are they doing there in terms of the general manager and what's his name, Matt?
Masai Ujiri.
Masai Ujiri. What is Masai Ujiri doing there? Like, he's been heralded as one of the best GMs, president of basketball operations, for years and years and years, and he extends RJ Barrett, extends Quigley, extends Scotty Barnes, which I guess you have to. They traded for Jakob Poeltl. They gave up a first-round pick for him a couple of years ago, which was a befuddling move at the time. I don't know what their long-term strategy seems to be, but, listen, maybe I'll be proven wrong, and all these guys are good young players, and they're going to be fighting for a playoff seeding, and they'll be a good team to watch. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it.
I do think they have a good chance of being in the play-in game if things can break right for them. I just don't know how that Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett shooting combo is really going to work out. And also, Quickly and Barnes, who's going to handle the ball? I don't know. Just it's messy. It's sloppy. It's not my favorite. But who are you going to pick next? Because that's probably going to be worse.
Yeah, this is really tough because there's 2 teams I'm trying to decide between, and one of them is likely going to be tanking at some point, and the other one can't tank. I'm going to go with the Pistons, just on pure upside.
Real quick, what team cannot tank?
No, the Pistons.
They can't tank?
No, they aren't going. I don't believe they're going to tank.
Well, I think if they play their hardest, they're tanking anyway.
Right. I mean, my point being is that I think I was deciding between them and the Bulls, and I think the Bulls are going to end up tanking, and the Pistons are going to end up trying to play hard.
Yeah, fair.
So they're right around the same projected win total. I think it's 29.5, 27.5. Right, they're right around there. And I just really like Cade Cunningham, and I think I'm still on Cade Island. I think he's going to have a good season. And, Jalen Duren, there's a couple of good pieces I like there.
I like a lot of pieces there, and I'm very confused by the whole situation, to be honest with you. Why Monty Williams was coaching there, coming off of an NBA Finals run with an experienced team, with an experienced point guard, to go to Detroit with a bunch of rookies who he didn't want to have any time to deal with. No,
Right.
it didn't work. It didn't work out clearly.
What made the ownership in Detroit be like, oh, you know what? He just went to the finals with a really experienced team. He can develop my young guys. That doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. And then you've got Jaden Ivey, who you have to develop. So finally this year, they've already said, no matter what happens, Cunningham, Ivey, Duren, Thompson, all going to be on the court. One problem they have zero shooting.
Yeah,
I mean nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean Cunningham is like functional, but like he's the one passing to people, so that's going to be a problem.
If Lonzo Ball was on their team, he'd be far and away the best 3-point shooter on their team.
Yes,
and listen, he's coming off of like 2.5 years of not playing basketball.
And speaking of Lonzo Ball, that's why my next pick will be the Chicago Bulls, because they have professionals on the team more than the next two. The last two teams, and we'll get to it, just lack professional players. Where the Bulls still have a semblance of a team. Kobe White last year developed into an actual NBA player. I think that he's good for 20 a game. He's a high energy guy. They re-signed Patrick Williams for pretty big money for a guy who hasn't really played since he's been drafted, but the talent's there.
Well, he hasn't really even shown flashes. He's just like a very theoretical player that everyone thinks, well, not even anymore, but people thought he was going to be a really switchable wing, hard-nosed defender, make open threes, and he hasn't really shown much of that, but I guess, the Bulls know more about their players than we do.
He was advertised as a more athletic Harrison Barnes, right. When the reality is he's a less athletic Harrison Barnes, he's a less athletic.
Harrison Barnes was able to score and shoot. He had a post game. He could dribble. He could make open threes. But Patrick Williams has not shown any of those things.
If Harrison Barnes spent his early 20s on hype, if Harrison Barnes was drafted today and went to any of these bottom teams that we were talking about, he'd average 25 a game. That's that's the kind of talent that Harrison Barnes had. He just was always on good teams and was always not the first. He was always clearly the second or third option at best.
At best, yeah, I agree with you there. You had to take the Bulls there because the only two teams left are the Nets and the Wizards. Holy shit, this is a really Sophie's choice of horror right now. You know what? This is what I'm going to do, Matt, because I'm going to stick it to you hard. I'm going to take the Wizards so that you don't have another thing to root for with them. And it's fun because I'm going to
I'm rooting against them because I'm all in on all the young guys that they might get. I'm the biggest college basketball fan this year possible. I'm going to watch a lot of Rutgers and a lot of Duke.
I just want to watch Bub Carrington score points. Yeah, that's all I want to do. I want to see if Alex Sarr can make a basket because
he's actually been okay in the preseason.
Yeah, I just believe it or not, I haven't paid that much attention to the Wizards preseason, but in summer league he looked like the worst player ever picked in the top two.
Yes, he had back-to-back games in the summer league that were probably the two worst games ever played by a basketball player. I think he was like 1 for 25 shooting or something along those lines. But I have watched him a little bit in the preseason. He's really athletic, and he really does have a good stroke for 7'1". He blocks shots. He steals. Koulibaly is very hypothetical. I don't know if he really has any true basketball ability other than his general athleticism.
I'd like to see him develop. Listen, for all intents and purposes, I root for the Wizards. They're the closest team to me growing up geographically in Baltimore, and when they do well, I like it. Although I don't live and die as you do with their wins and losses. Yeah,
I'm a huge fan, and it's been a really rough life. I was going to say a couple years, but even the good years were bad. The Gilbert Arenas years were marred by a gun incident, and the John Wall years ended with him jumping on a table after a Game 5 win and never winning another game.
Yeah, you know they haven't won 50 games since the 70s?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah. That's an incredible stat. Since the 1970s, they have not won 50 games. It's
And
50.
the best is there was one year they had the best record in the NBA mid-season, and Eddie Jordan coached the All-Star team.
Yeah.
And they ended up losing like 20 of their next 25 and did not win 50.
No, it was unbelievable. Listen, the Gilbert Arenas years were fun there for like two years, maybe.
It was fun, but like also we knew that it was the high point, and we knew that it wasn't going anywhere.
Well, they were never going to get past LeBron in the East, and LeBron put them out for like 2-3 years in a row in the playoffs. They just couldn't get past them, and nor should they have. He was the best player in the world at the time.
It was a fine team, but it was a very, very flawed team. Even though, and I mean, compared to like the teams that end up winning, you're not going to win with a non-star unless you have two guys like Tatum and Brown who are.
It's like a less defensive Pacers team of this era.
Yeah,
which is funny because the Pacers are not known for their defense.
Right. Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but it brings us to my last pick, which is the Nets. I don't even know what to say about this roster. I don't think you can point to a lot of things, but to not have any semblance of hope from any player on their roster. And don't give me any Cam Thomas talk because I understand that he'll average some points, but that guy can't play in the NBA. I'm sorry. He's too small, can't play defense, not athletic enough, can light it up, can score from anywhere. Maybe he could be a six-man somewhere one day, but he's their only scoring threat. Ben Simmons is going to start for this team.
Is he starting? I did not see that.
I mean, who else is starting?
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think that in 2024, the year of our Lord, you could start a player who like mentally cannot make a free throw.
Yeah, or could mentally be a teammate to people or mentally be part of an organization. Or right. I mean, everything that he's done from the day he entered the United States from Australia has been awful in every sense. There's not one thing that he's done that I agree with.
Well,
it's crazy.
He made a couple of all-NBA teams and all-defensive teams.
Yeah, but he never learned how to shoot.
No, and there's a long-standing theory that he's shooting with the wrong hand, which our boy KOC, Kevin O'Connor, has been saying for literally 8 years.
Something's got to be off because, I mean, I watched my 9 and 11-year-old, my 9 and 12-year-old learn how to shoot, and they can do it. Yeah. They make free throws at a better rate than him, and they're 9 and 12. Yeah, he's a grown man. It makes no sense.
They're not 6'9" and like in the top 1% of athleticism.
Right. So it makes it even crazier. Like, you got to understand, these guys, the Steph Currys of the world, they can stand there in an empty gym and make 90 out of 100 3-pointers. Yeah. That's what kind of athletes these guys are. And then you have this other – that's why NBA players hate him, because they look at him, and that's why they don't like Rudy Gobert either, because they don't have the actual ability to play basketball. They have the athleticism to play basketball. But they are not hoopers. And hoopers like hoopers. They don't like pretenders. And that is exactly what he is.
That's a really good point that I don't think I've heard before, Matt. That like people like Rudy Gobert, and now we don't know Rudy Gobert's practice habits. We don't know how hard he works on his game.
I've heard players talk about it.
He's certainly not a hooper, though. I agree with you there.
No, and he's got no game. He can't dribble, can't shoot. Like players don't respect that. That's why NBA players love Kyrie. Kyrie's a crazy person in real life. Like he thinks the earth is flat. He still thinks that, but he can dribble his ass off like no one's business, and he can do his English off the glass, and he's got the respect of the entire basketball world.
Good. That's a really strong point. I hadn't heard that before, but that makes total sense to me. All right, I think we just knocked out the Eastern Conference wins draft. I'm going to go over the teams really quickly. Matt,
you agreed though that the loser gets a tattoo of the other person's face.
100%.
Okay, just making sure.
That's definitely the bet. Matt has the Knicks, the Bucks, the Pacers, the Heat, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Nets, the Raptors. Scott has the Cavs, the Pistons, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Magic, the Sixers, and the Celtics.
Wait, did we draft all 15 teams?
We did.
So who was the 15th player? Me? The 15th team? Because I think you got to not.
You have it 1, 2.
So I do not have the Nets.
We're gonna have to figure that out.
No, it's pretty simple. We have to have the same amount. We have to have 14 each. So my last pick would be knocked out.
God damn it.
Looks like you're getting a tattoo of my face.
Yeah, can I get it on my ball sack so no one ever sees it?
The way
Yep,
you
that's where it's going, dude. That's where it's going. Getting the tattoo your face on my ball sack, dude.
Well, the way you show your balls, my face will be everywhere. The fun thing is I get to watch. I have in the last few years, rewatched a lot of them. And a lot of these movies do not hold up in any way.
What hasn't held up?
So, Jim Carrey movies, in general, like that humor was, let's call it gross out humor or shock humor. It doesn't hold up 30 years later when it's been played. When that sort of stuff has been played out. Mm. And like Dumb and Dumber in 1994, I would have married it if it was a human being. And today I don't even know if I laughed out loud, to be honest.
You know what still holds up, and it was one of his of the era, one of his worst movies, even though it was still hilarious, is Cable Guy. Cable Guy is really good.
Well, I think the real reason is Cable Guy's the only one of those type of movies. Now, I don't dislike Jim Carrey. Truman Show, I think, is brilliant and amazing, and a lot of his serious works are great too. So I do agree with you there. Cable Guy's the only one of those movies that was actually a legitimate artistic work. Like there was a darkness to it. Judd Apatow was involved in writing it. Mm-hmm. And it was early Apatow, so there was more of a deeper story there than your Ace Ventura. I'm going to talk out of my ass and find a dolphin.
Yeah, this should be. I'm going to try and put this in the pod because it's a really good conversation. But I tend to still love those movies. Dumb and Dumber, I see what you're saying, but I have such nostalgia for it. Ace Ventura, I'll laugh every time. I just can't not laugh at it.
Ace Ventura holds up a little bit better, but it looks very old. It's
right.
People are wearing early '90s big pants and floral shirts and.
What about The Mask?
I didn't like The Mask when it came out.
Oh, I was a big Mask guy.
I thought it was cool looking, but it didn't do anything for me. But again, it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Great, that's great.
That's amazing. That and Truman Show are two of literally my favorite movies. I mean, The
Majestic's very good.
I love The Majestic. Yeah, where he had amnesia and then was in the small town in the 1920s in California. Yeah, really, really good. He's an amazing actor and an amazing talent. My only thing I'm saying is 30 years after, that type of humor doesn't resonate with me personally, and my kids didn't think it was that funny. And my kids are obsessed with, they love every Will Ferrell movie and every Adam Sandler movie. They just weren't into Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber in the same way.
It's so funny because Jim Carrey was at the time a way bigger star than I think both of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. He ascended way to way higher heights than Adam Sandler at the time for certain, and then for Will Ferrell also for sure.
Oh, for sure. Will Ferrell movies never made Jim Carrey type money. You got to remember when Ace Ventura came out, it was a little small, tiny independent movie that cost literally nothing to make.
Yeah,
and it was the number one movie in America for a long period of time.
I saw David Alan Grier talk about it, and he said he saw the screening with Jim and Jim was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "It's great, man. It's really good." And then turned to Tommy Davidson and was like, "That's going to sink him. That shit's not going to make any money." And it was the biggest movie in America. So
it was definitely. But you also have to remember a lot about comedy. A lot about comedy is talking about something, seeing something, or making an opinion that no one else has really made before. Mm. So when yes, Dumb and Dumber did 50 styles of jokes that were right on time, right on point, and brilliant at the time. But we've seen them so many times in different variations over the years,
right,
that going back to watch that, you're like, oh, I get
right.
that trope.
No, that's exactly right. We've seen 100 different comedians do their take on what Ace Ventura or what Jim Carrey was doing in the 90s, through the 90s and even into the 2000s. And now you look back on Jim Carrey and you're like, oh, he's doing a copy of people copying him. That's what your brain registers it as.
Well, Dumb and Dumber is just essentially a remake of The Jerk with another jerk. Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a road trip movie about the dumbest person in America. I mean, It's a complete ripoff of Steve Martin, but it worked. There's no question about it. And
there were two of them too. There were two, Dumb and Dumber.
Well, there was also Dumb and Dumber. that didn't involve Jim Carrey.
And then there was Dumb and Dumber 2, T.O., that did involve Jim Carrey. And that was pretty bad.
It just didn't go. So it was basically the same laugh pattern in 2 that I had in 1 watching it recently.
Yeah.
Like comical, like it has some funny moments, but like the humor's the same.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. This was
If you want to see my face, please sign up for Scott's OnlyFans page.
You can sign up for that, but more importantly, follow us on YouTube at MNC Pod, at Instagram and Facebook at Monday Night Conversations. Let us know what you think about the podcast. Like, subscribe. We're here for you guys, and we want you to be entertained, so let us know that you are. Thank you so much for listening. Matt, thank you for joining me for this Wins Draft.
And God bless America.
We're going to be back, I think, early this week again, and we're going to do the Western Conference Wins Draft, and then I'm going to be the one who deletes the worst team in the fucking draft. But until then, take care of yourself and each other.
Bye.
All right, good shit. I'm stopping it.